Well, yes, sir. I've got him in the office with me right now. Yeah, of course. I understand. All right. Thank you. Yep. All right. Should go. Bye. Well, glad you decided to drop by. I appreciate the time. My name's Detective Carruthers, and that bother you? Sorry about that. You're doing me a big favor by coming down here. At least I can use not smoke for the 30, 45 minutes that you're going to be here, right? But you're not going to stop me from drinking my coffee, though. All right, well, let's get down to brass tacks here. Probably wondering why I called you in. Good reason. Mostly it's that I'm excited. I am excited because yesterday really, came across a crime scene and collected just a veritable smorgasbord. And yeah, I say smorgasbord. I don't say smorgasbord. I say smorgasbord of evidence in an exciting case. A case, we get a lot of different kinds of cases around here, obviously, but the exciting ones, hate to sound morbid, but exciting ones are the murders. And we had a very exciting murder that my partner and I started investigating yesterday, collected a bunch of evidence, and I was just so overcome and so overwhelmed with this sort of feeling of awe at the orgy of evidence, what it is, that I felt like maybe I could use you as a sounding board, sort of work through some of my ideas, and maybe you could contribute some ideas of your own, even if you can't, right? Even if you see this evidence and it doesn't mean anything to you, which I don't expect most of it's going to mean a darn thing to you, beyond whatever common sense notions you might be able to bring to the table that maybe I'm missing, that the act of going through the evidence with a new set of ears and eyes, the act of showing it to you, this exercise will help me make sure I've dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's. Maybe if you weren't here, I'd be dotting all my T's and crossing all my I's, and that wouldn't go over very well, would it? Certainly wouldn't go over well with my captain. And, he's got enough to say about me. He's not always a fan of my methods. He calls me a bit of a loose cannon, and I tell him, Captain, that's a trope. Can't call a police officer, detective, a loose cannon. That's just like, come on, come up with something a little more inventive than that. But he says the shoe fits. So I tell him, stop with the cliches, and he responds with a cliche. So what am I gonna do? I'm just gonna, he is my boss, so I'm just gonna, in the spirit of engaging in cliches, I'm gonna grin and bear it, and just hope everything turns out for the best. Anyway, I'm rambling here, as is my wont. So why don't I, well, first of all, let me just show you this big bag of evidence I got. This is something else. This is me and my partner, Detective McCreary, collected all this evidence from the crime scene yesterday afternoon. And we've been sort of poring over it and cataloging it and bagging it and tagging it and doing all the usual kinds of things you do when you get material evidence in a crime of this nature. And, I just wanted to share. So, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share with you, if that's all right. And that's nothing. That's just this is just a little jibber jabber thing here that I like to keep around on my desk sometimes. And sometimes I press buttons on it. Maybe I press that button. Maybe I press another button there, and keep that one going. And don't even worry about that. I'm gonna set it like right there, and you can just forget that's there. No big deal. So what do you say we break into this big old bag of evidence and see what we got, huh? Because, I've seen all of it fairly recently, but even I'm excited to look at it again. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, I'm going to bust out the case file. Open unsolved, C76-118. That doesn't mean anything to you. It actually doesn't really mean anything to me. I just made it up. But the criminal report, let's go through now there's some information, obviously, we keep out of the press. We do that for a good reason, right? If we are responding to a lot of calls from people who claim to have information about the crime, we want to have something that the public doesn't know about, that we can measure that against, so that we can separate the psychos. Come to think of it, it's really separating the psychos from the psychos, because either you are psychotic in that you want to meddle in an investigation you know nothing about, or you partook in a crime and you're calling about it. Either way, I guess if you're a witness, you're not necessarily a psycho, but what were you doing? What were you doing down there? Right? No smoke without fire. I guess I talk in cliches too. I'll have to think about it. I'll have to bring that up with my therapist on Friday. See what she has to say. I have a feeling I know what she's going to say. But, I'm paying, put her kids through college, apparently. All right, so July the 6th, 2 days after the glorious day celebrating the independence of our great nation. 2018, that's this year, at least. Well, I don't know why I pointed at this thing. Don't worry about it. Nothing there. 2018. So, officers called in response to a locked hotel room with a smell emanating from within. Now, you might hear that and you might think, well, that's disgusting. That is, this. I'm grossed out already. But I got to tell you, the number of calls that we get, and this is not my first department. I might be down here now, but this is my fourth department that I've been in, and I've been on the force for over 20 years. And the number of times that I have responded to a locked hotel room with a strange smell emanating from within, I can't even tell you. And 9 out of 10 times, I'm going to tell you what it is 9 out of 10 times. It's less and less now, I'll say, because hoteliers have become smarter, and larger chains are taking over, and basically a lot of these places, they don't allow you to pay in cash. You gotta have a credit card on file, because they don't want people coming in and going all Led Zeppelin on the hotel rooms and destroying everything. But there's still a subset of these hotel rooms, motel rooms in some cases, that will cater to a clientele that prefers to pay in cash for whatever reason. I'm not judging why you might want to pay in cash. People sometimes, people don't trust the police. They don't trust power structures. They'd like to stay off the grid if they could. So, and if they want to do that, that's that's their get out. That's fine. And with the economy being the way it is today, if you're a small family-run hotel, you can't exactly afford to be turning away business because they want to pay in cash. So. But I will say this was more of a problem 20 years ago than it is today, because most hotels, you could pay in cash 20 years ago. And what would happen would be, you'd get these jokers, spring breakers, or, just good old boys, having a good time and enjoying themselves with some, fairly harmless pranks. And I don't really know what you would call the equivalent of an upper decker if it's left on the bed of a hotel room instead of the cistern. What would you call that? We'd have to come up with a term for that. Not upper decker, upper bedder. Okay, so sometimes people leave an upper bedder. Sometimes a couple of people will leave upper bedders. Get out, leave their upper bedders, get out, leave. And, before you know it, you got a hotel owner calling the local police department saying they got a hotel room with a strange smell emanating from within. You get noises too sometimes. So we get that. Obviously that's still gross. I'm not saying that's not gross, but it's not as nefarious as, it sounds when we get a call that says, hey, there's a hotel room here, it's locked, and there's a strange smell coming from inside. We don't think, when you hear hooves, you don't think zebras, you think horses, right? So when I get a call about a smell, I think upper bedder, not decomposing body, usually. So we got this call to this hotel room, the Flamingo Hotel. Officers respond to call. I'm just reading the bullet points of this criminal report. We identify ourselves as officer. I'm not going to read this verbatim. It sounds weird. I was there, so I'm going to interpret this as one of the officers that was on the scene. Me and Mercury, my partner, we identified ourselves at the door as police officers, and there was no response from within. And I can tell you, at that point, it was pretty apparent to me this was not an upper bedder. There's just I'm not a superstitious man. I'm not a superstitious sort, but I believe there's something. There's some kind of sense that you can get, especially from something like a dead body. Something just felt off. The smell was not right, first of all. And maybe that's all it is maybe, evolutionary speaking, whatever. We've developed the ability to discern between, that's fecal matter, and that's gross. Don't eat it. Don't go near it. But it's everywhere. No big deal. Fertilizing the crops or whatever. It's actually a good thing. And that's a dead body, right? So, by the time we were identifying ourselves at the door, I knew something a little more nefarious was up than an upper bedder. So after doing that for a bit, the officers, McCreary and Carruthers, that's me, Steve Carruthers, Detective Steve Carruthers. You can call me Steve, call me Detective. You can call me Detective Carruthers if you want. my captain has a joke. He calls me a loose cannon. He says that I'm a danger to myself and Carruthers. I'm going to break the fourth wall here a bit and say that was a viewer who came up with that joke. And I think it's pretty funny. So, anyway, back into character now. So we broke into the room as per ST-375B. Totally regulation. Nothing untoward going on. We weren't, if that wasn't probable cause, I don't know what was. And we found a deceased white male inside, between the ages of 50 and 60. The cause of death not readily apparent. Now that line, cause of death not readily apparent, that's a little bit, I guess it's a little bit misleading, because when somebody says cause of death not readily apparent, maybe the first thing that might pop into your mind might be, well, the person was just lying there and there was nothing suspicious about them lying there, so the cause of death was not readily apparent. But no, this was actually a case in which there were so many things going wrong that we just couldn't tell which one actually killed the poor blighter, right? There was blood, there were implements of we'll get to it. That's why I'm telling you this bag is exciting. Anyway, cause of death was not readily apparent, although it was obvious that it was, we were talking about a criminal homicide here. Now, we did the same stuff that we always do. In this case, we check with the hotel owners. We check with the clerk who's on staff, whose shift was, 8 hours up leading to that point, and the shift before, these clerks were actually on 12-hour shifts, which sort of makes things worse because, they tend to pay less attention. Can't do a 12-hour shift without sort of sacrificing something. Something's got to give there. Also, this being a hotel that catered to cash-paying customers, they were also sort of less nosy or less discriminating about who was coming and going in their hotel rooms, whichever they call it. So nobody saw nothing. Hey, here's something else that's amazing to me. Nobody saw nothing, and this is the way it always is. Nobody saw nothing. Nobody did nothing. Now, for the amount of times that I've seen just horrible, grotesque, and sort of wide-reaching and not secretive, not covered-up crimes. The amount of times that I've been on those cases where nobody has seen nothing and nobody's done nothing is amazing to me. Somebody's doing something. Somebody's seeing something. Nobody's talking about it, right? Especially to the police, right? You don't want to talk to the police about stuff, do you? No, you don't. Can't do that. Anyway, so we searched the room. I'm an amateur photographer as well, and my captain indulges me in that regard. He allows me to do a lot of the picture taking and the evidence collate. And, I have a bit of OCD, and I use it to my advantage in this particular case. So we collected what we collected, and came back with this big evidence bag. And now, why don't you, without further ado, without any more preamble, without me blithering on and on about the events leading up to the event that you are obviously here for, let me stop talking about the stuff that don't matter so much, and let's start talking about stuff that does matter, i.e. the evidence. Now, like I said, I have it all in this big bag here, but, you know, I'm just going to pull things out. I have everything also listed on this criminal report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull stuff out just sort of in order of how I have it here, if it's all the same to you. What do you think, okay? All right, let's do this. Let's get this started. Let's get this party started. All right, so the first thing on our list here that we found were some what appeared to be swatches of fabric. Now, I'll just show you instead of trying to explain this to you. And these weren't torn from a garment. These are, you know, squares with grommet holes in the corners, as if they were part of a larger set of possible, you know, types of cloth that people might want to take a look at. So let's take a look at both of these here. This first one is sort of navy blue canvas kind of material, which I gotta say I'm not really a huge fan of. It's not very comfortable. I can't imagine wearing it. It almost feels like paper more than fabric, and you crumple it. It sort of makes a sound that's more like paper. It's not soft. It's not breathable. It's thin. If it were significantly thicker, I might think, hey, you know, use this to, you know, make a pair of shoes. You know? But I certainly wouldn't want to be wearing it as a shirt or anything else that directly touches my skin. I wouldn't even want it as a jacket, to be honest with you. Color's nice, yeah. Almost like flag material. So that was the first one. We only recovered two. I can't help but imagine that this is just a part of a larger set. Now, the second piece of fabric I was much more enamored of personally. It's a corduroy. Now that I'm looking at it again in this light, it's marbled. I sure hope that's not blood, but it's a bit late now. It's sort of a marbled gray and dark gray. And if it were cool enough outside, I would definitely wear this. I could see this. I like a nice corduroy jacket. I'll tell you even more than that, I like a nice corduroy pair of pants. You know what I like to do is, when you're wearing a corduroy pair of pants, kind of squeeze your knees together a little more than you might normally. Get that sort of, I don't know if it's going to be big enough for me to get that sound, but sort of the cord on cord sound. It's like I'm not going to be able to get it here. It has to be like tight, it need to be tight. It's almost like a whistle, which we're not going to get from this. But, like I said, I'd take this over the canvas certainly any day. So, there There we have a couple of pieces of fabric there. Pretty nice. And we'll put them right back in their evidence bag. Seal them back up. We don't want to be accused of any sort of tampering. Now there's some people who might consider what I just did evidence tampering. I don't consider it that, and that's what matters. Okay, next, so here's like kind of what I was talking about when I was saying, we have a lot of possible methods of death. There was a sort of vinyl cloth measuring tape wrapped around this gentleman's neck, tightened to the point where subcutaneous ruptured blood vessels were found, bruising. Our man on the scene there said this was possibly to cover up other strangulation injuries, but whether those were sustained from violent means or otherwise, if you catch my drift, that is less certain. Let's find this. There we go. So yeah, here's the bag that we have with the measuring tape. Wow. See, appears to be 60 inches long, so 5 feet. Or he's on the other side here, centimeters. I don't know. I don't do metric, so whatever they are. So there were several items at this scene that indicated that perhaps the deceased was a tailor or involved in fashion in some way, in some capacity. But I couldn't tell you exactly what or how. I wear the same. I wear a white shirt, gray tie pretty much every day. Unless I can find me a nice, corduroy jacket. That's cool hat. I'll wear me a brown corduroy jacket. Anyway, this is the tensile strength in this is significantly more than one might think, and it was wrapped several times around the neck of the deceased, and quite tightly too, as if it had been wrapped and then pulled, almost like the reins of a horse. Now, like I said, the type of clientele that might frequent this establishment, maybe that's something that they might do, outside of the context of trying to kill somebody. Just don't know. No fingerprints on this. So that's one of the frustrating parts of this whole thing so far is totally unsuccessful in pulling prints. Which, as you might imagine, annoying. Here, 5-foot teal measuring tape. Down there. Okay, now, some evidence is more pertinent than other evidence, but we have to be thorough. And I personally can't see This particular piece of evidence being, it looks like that's inside out. I'm trying to put that glue on inside out. That's not going to work. I can't see this particular piece of evidence as being that pertinent to what we're trying to figure out. But, you know, we got to cover all our bases, so that's what we do. I may be a loose cannon. But I'm a extremely thorough loose cannon. So this was let's see if I can find this. It was a bag of dried tea. Here we go. Yeah, that's right. A bag of tea. So what this was doing there while it was there, not much clue. Now it says it's a Mystic Dragon tea, and it's from Annapolis, Maryland, which ain't too far north of here. Get there in a day. Contains caffeine, which means I'd probably like it. I'm generally not a tea man myself. I'm coffee and cigarettes, speaking of which I'm kind of jonesing for a cigarette right now. I won't do it. Anyway, this tea it does have I gotta tell you, gotta be honest with you here. The aroma on this tea, it's amazing. It might combat some of the cigarette smoke smell. If you want, why don't you hold on to this for a few minutes and you can smell it and, you know, kind of play with it if you like. And we'll move on to more important evidence here, because I think that tea has any bearing on what we really need. Oh, now this was interesting. We found a small dead frog. Now, this is currently being analyzed by the Mayberry Reptile Clinic, but the initial findings were that they thought it was a rainbow strawberry cuttle poison frog. It's one of the most poisonous frogs in existence. So I'm going to leave the gloves on when I touch this frog. Here, froggy. Here you go. Look at him. You know, he's passed on. He is not living anymore. He was not living when we found him. So, you know, don't look at me. But you can see a description of enclosed evidence. Frog. That's all we got. Just a frog. But like I said, the analysis came back and they think it's a rainbow strawberry cuttle poison frog. You know, kind of name that is for something that can kill you. I do not know. But I can tell you, when I was holding this frog, gloved, of course, and giving it a bit of a squeeze. Felt pretty good. Felt pretty good about myself. Felt pretty good about, my life, the way things were going. Just kind of calmed me down. Now, were this frog alive, I can't imagine that it would be very cooperative when it comes to being squozethed. As it is, it really has no say in what we do with it or how we handle it. And, well, as a general rule, I prefer to be as respectful as possible to all living creatures. It is ultimately just a dead frog. So, apparently, the poison from this frog you can ingest less than a milliliter, and it can cause death, but it's not a very quick death, and it just doesn't necessarily sit well with the findings of the scene for our victim to have been killed with the poison that is secreted from the glands on the back of this here frog. I'm sorry, buddy. It can't be easy being green, right? He's no Kermit. Kermit's a common tree frog. This guy, if this guy were a Muppet, I don't know what his name would be, but I don't imagine he'd have a lot of Muppet friends. Don't imagine he'd have a lot of speaking lines either. But he might be very pretty. See some iridescent fur on him. Don't let the kitties touch him. Oh, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen right there. My advice to the Henson companies: do not try to make a Muppet out of the rainbow strawberry cuddle poison frog. I don't think it's something that would go well for you. Alright. But I imagine if he were a Muppet and he did talk, his voice would sound a little something like this. I'm a frog, and I don't really like it when people squeeze me, but I do like hopping around a lot, and I enjoy sitting in the sunlight and letting it warm my cold amphibious blood. Sometimes I'll just find a nice rock and I'll sit there on that rock and sunbathe and catch flies and who knows, maybe occasionally poison a 50 to 60-year-old white male in a motel room. Yeah, just a possibility, If you do decide to go that way, feel free to get in contact with me. Detective Steve Carruthers. You can find me in the book. Alright. Let's put this poison little guy down back in his plastic bag. See how nicely I'm treating him? Air. He's long past needing air. But at least, we can give him a little dignity in his final state. Alright. So what else do we find? Yeah, a couple things. So we found this pair of scissors embedded in the victim's back. Now, the preliminary analysis indicated that these wounds, the wounds made from these scissors, were inflicted post-mortem. But that had they been inflicted while our victim was still alive, that they probably would have been fatal. There are several deep stabs between the shoulder blades, piercing the rib cage, lungs, and some of the major arteries leading from the heart. And again, looking at these scissors, the blood has been thoroughly cleaned off. But these are not a normal pair of scissors. These are a particular German sort of engineered pair of scissors that to me indicate that whoever it was that owned them was a professional in his field, or perhaps the killer was a professional in their field. I'd like to have a pair of scissors like this myself. Got some cheap old piece of crap. You gotta sort of use your fingers and your thumb and pull and push against each other so that you can get the blades tight enough to actually do any cutting. Well, that ain't the case with these, I can tell you. Just by doing these would cut anything super easy here. Here we got I'll probably have to make another copy of this because it's one of the blank pages of the incident report. It's nice. Actually just feels good just to be cutting with these things. You're wielding, it's clear you're wielding tools that are some of the best at what they're meant to do. Now, I bet you these aren't meant to cut paper, and possibly I'm ruining them in some way by doing so. That is immensely satisfying, I must admit. I'll do the other side. That's so satisfying. Do the other side. Okay. Captain, call me up. Call me a loose cannon. Say I'm cutting up incident investigation reports. Showing evidence to complete strangers. Well, see, the paper's starting to lose its structural integrity as I continue to cut it like this. Oh, well. Look at that. Twist it. Get a nice little kind of helical thing going there. And it would have to be longer. So we could roll it up. When you're a kid, you do this kind of thing. You roll it up, make a squid. Except now I've got tentacles on both sides. It's possible to have fun looking at crime scene evidence. I'm having fun. I tell you, I just need, I hope you don't mind, I just need one little fix. I just blew that right in your face, didn't I? I'm sorry about that. Gosh. That'll hold me, though. Hopefully. Now I'll burn up that glove. I'm doing that. Gotta be careful. Okay. So there we go. Blood was cleaned off these. They are excellent at their job. And they're going back into their bag right now. Oh, there she go. Sharpen up. Close this puppy up. There's a couple of them. Actually, one of these things isn't even bagged. We did find it in a. You can see, like, we found this in the bathroom. And there was some hair color residue right along the edges here. I don't know if you can see that or not. But it's possible. I mean, there's two possibilities. You know, the victim was an older gentleman. Perhaps he colored his hair. But there's an alternative. Perhaps the killer or killers used hair color to change their appearance before leaving, although they weren't seen. So, you know, would have been a lot of trouble for nothing. And we didn't bag this because it seemed kind of silly to put a bag inside another bag. But, you know, I guess if you're talking about procedure, we probably should have. always we just follow procedure as close as possible. There's generally a reason for it. Not always. General. So I think you're beginning to see like why I was so excited by all this evidence. And we still got a couple more pieces of evidence here. Some of it honestly I'm not going to show you. So there was a shattered teacup. Now the remnants of some sort of substance in the cup are being analyzed, so we don't have the shattered piece of the teacup yet. And the victim had vomit is congealed near the mouth. That's being analyzed too. You have some of it here, but it's really just pretty gross. It kind of got hard with like some weird liquid in it. I don't know how. This almost looks like a piece of lung or something. Not sure. Pretty disgusting. Not gonna spend a lot of time with that, but the point there was, the victim vomited. The victim also urinated during his death throes. Now, the urine is one of the first things that we got analyzed. Now, it's still being fully analyzed, but the preliminary report shows no trace of poison. That could mean more than one thing. It could mean the poison is so fast acting that it doesn't have time to get metabolized, pass through the urine. Alternatively, it could be just a poison that doesn't show traces in the urine. But that would be a very rare poison to find and to use. Along with that, there were several broken pieces of crystal, a broken nightstand. There's general disarray in the room. Seems to indicate that the victim convulsed violently prior to their death. What else do we find? What's this doing in here? This is evidence I was supposed to be lost. I'm sure you keep your mouth shut about this. We were supposed to lose this evidence a week or so ago. I have to have a talk with McCreary about procedure when it comes to handling cash. It might not buy you a hotel room, but still buy you a boat. Once you start to get too old for this hit. Anyway, that does not go back in the evidence bag. What was I getting? Oh, yeah. This was an interesting item. These are called thread nippers, and you hold them like this, and you snip the ends of thread with them. Same kind of quality craftsmanship in the scissors. Now, these were used to carve words in the forehead of the victim. The words "dumb jerk." Now, that wound was almost certainly inflicted post-mortem. There's hardly any bleeding around it at all, so... but interesting implement. I assume it was kind of wielded like a pen almost, and just, you know, D-U-M. Oh yeah, it was D-U-M jerk, not D-U-M-B jerk. It might have been a space issue. You know, you could tell they were starting to write it, and they were like, oh no, and they had to cram jerk real small. So they probably just decided to leave out the B for space reasons, which, you know, it's fine. The point was taken. The killer thought the victim was a dumb jerk, regardless of how it's spelled. All right. We're getting close to the end here. Sort of our last piece of evidence. This was found hung, like purposefully hung, from one of those, you know, they have those dead pieces of bamboo sticking out of a vase. Try and pass that off as a plant they never have to water or care for. What was this? Oops. This pocket square. Now, what was interesting about this pocket square is it matched the bow tie worn by the victim. High quality pocket square, although, you know, not that high quality when the back is, it's not a double-sided pocket square. But it's clear that the killer was sending a message. Now, here's the problem that we've been having with this case that I feel like I can share with you, you know, being through what we've been through over the last hour or so. Can I get that tea back for me? It is good. Excellent. Put that back in here. So, bureaucracy is a thing. You know, it's a thing that exists in almost every business, every organization. And, you know, it's something that causes discontent among workers generally who are just trying to get, you know, stuff done. One of the things that bureaucracy has introduced into my line of work is clearance rates. So clearance rates are something we have to worry about. We've got to worry about them all the damn time. And I've been pretty good with my clearance rates in the past, but lately, my close to spotless record has become considerably less spotless. One might even say spotted. Now, if I'm clearing cases left and right, I can be as much as a loose cannon as I want because I'm getting results, right? But the minute I stop producing results, well, that's when things start to become an issue for me. And that's when I have to start looking for other ways to get things done. So what I didn't tell you when you came here is, well, I did tell you that we weren't able to find any latent fingerprints. What I didn't tell you is that we're pretty sure that our victim was killed by someone poisoning their tea. Now, you were not chosen to come here at random. You were chosen to come here because we checked your alibi and your whereabouts for 5th. So when we think this happened, you basically came up with nothing. Maybe, let me stop this. Maybe you have no motive. Maybe you don't know the person who was killed. That doesn't matter to me. What matters is my clearance rates and the fact that we had no fingerprints until you were kind enough to spend a good 30 minutes playing with what we're pretty sure was the very object used to poison our guy. So, I think you see the conundrum you're in, and maybe you'll wriggle your way out of it. Maybe you won't. That much remains to be seen, but for the time being, I'm afraid I have to put you under arrest for the murder of Reynolds Woodcock. You know, you can put these on yourself, or I can put them on you, but I'd much rather you did it. You'll get your call to your lawyer. You can go ahead and say whatever you want, do whatever you want about our little conversation here, and we'll see who believes who. But I want to thank you. I want to thank you for helping me walk through the evidence and the single most important piece of evidence. And I want you to thank me for being as kind as I'm being and allowing you to put yourself in handcuffs rather than making a big spectacle of it. So we both have a lot to be thankful for, and my clearance rate will hopefully go up. And, we'll get ourselves another murderer off the streets, right? I don't matter. I'm planning most of that stuff anyway, You know how stuff gets done here, But the bottom line is it does get done, whether you agree with the methods or not. That's really immaterial. So, get them handcuffs on. I'll take you down to processing. You can make your phone call, and you could start mounting your defense. But we got a lot of fingerprints. Fingerprints are good evidence, and you got a lot of no alibi. So, I'm looking forward to this one. It's going to be fun.